So the women came in. They went into the living room. They formed kind of like a crescent moon. They were in traditional Muslim garb, covered from head to toe when they came in, and then they took off that garb. They were dressed in like they were going out to a nightclub, and you pick who you wanted, and that was it.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Grimm, Washington Bureau Chief for The Intercept, here for TYT today, and I'm joined by Roman Pascal, who's a source for a recent story that I published at The Intercept that you guys should go check out. He is a longtime friend of Ambassador Yusuf Al-Otaiba, who is the diplomat from the UAE who represents that country's interests here in Washington. Extremely important and powerful guy that you guys can learn more about in that story and elsewhere. Roman, in case people are wondering, did not reach out to me. He has not been out trying to shopping a story about his time as Otaiba's friend in the past. That's actually not how it worked. I reached out to a reporter, it was Brian Karem, I believe. Karem, that Roman had actually reached out to back in 2009, I believe, to talk about some allegations that ended up really not going anywhere. And so you said, you know what? If people don't want to dig into this, then fine. That's on them. And so I reached out to Brian. And Brian had, I don't know if you guys had stayed in touch, but he had a good contact.
Not so much. Every so often we'll touch base.
And I remember you took a couple days, to think about.
I did.
And what was going through your mind as you were thinking, like, do I want to talk about this again?
That's a part of my life that I closed the door on. I haven't thought about anything concerning this in a solid 8 years. So I definitely need to take some time, see if this is something I wanted to reopen.
Yeah, when we talked for the article that I wrote for The Intercept, you said something that I thought was an important distinction. You said something like, you can't say that Seth is a human trafficker. He's not. But some of the women that I was sent were trafficked women. In other words, he and you and the others were participants in this world, but not necessarily drivers of it, not people who are organizing the transportation of women from one place to another.
We were guys who were sent women. At that time, definitely misguided about what's important in life. So when we were sent those women, for us, it was like a huge party, best thing in the world. So, and some of those women, were trafficked women.
And that eventually got to you. That got that war on your conscience.
In the beginning, when I first heard it, I'd never even heard of anything like that in my life.
Right.
I mean, this was...
So pretend that people watching haven't read the story yet, and everybody should. Go read that piece when you're done watching the interview, but pretend they haven't seen it. Tell us how you met Yusuf Al-Otaiba.
I was with a friend, and we went to the Camelot, Gentlemen's Club.
Right nearby here,
yeah,
actually.
On M Street. And he was there with two other friends. Seth looked at me and gave me a once-over, and, you want to stay? I said, yeah. He looked to his buddy and said, he's good.
It's 2003?
Yeah, 2003.
So this story might sound implausible to a lot of people, but we know that so recently Yusuf Otaiba's email inbox was hacked, or somehow people got a hold of the contents and distributed it. And so we actually have ways of verifying the story. And so, all right, so you guys spent a night at the Camelot. You think that was the end of it, or how did it become a friendship?
I think it was a day or two later. I was down at Sequoia, and a buddy of mine who knew him said he was coming down. And I remember I kind of didn't want to run into him again because I didn't want him to think that I was trying to, befriend him or whatever. So I actually went over somewhere, kind of like in the corner having some drinks. He was down there. He happened to see me, had to come over and say thank you. And we just, we started talking, and we ended up going to another strip club that night. And then I think we went back to the Camelot. And it was about 2 or 3 more Camelot nights, and it was a Sunday night. And he had mentioned they were going to Los Angeles. He said, Roman, why don't you fly out to Los Angeles with us? And I thought he was just joking around, so I kind of blew it off. When we left that night, I ended up going back to the hotel with him. He invited me back to the hotel with a couple of his friends. And it was late, so when we got back, those guys went straight to sleep. And I was about to crash on the couch. And he called me into his room and said, listen, he handed me a wad of hundreds. Said, listen, meet me in LA. Again, I thought he was kind of joking, but I was like, listen, I can't go to LA. You know, so I backed out of the room and got on the couch ready to go to sleep. And he came out and just threw the hundreds on the table and said, listen, I'll see you in LA, cut the crap.
And so you went?
And I said, I did.
Yeah.
Stayed out there for a couple of days. It was a great time.
All right, so how did you wind up in Abu Dhabi?
Same thing. When I got back from LA, I thought that was the end of it. I didn't think I'd ever hear from him again. And two of his friends reached out to me. Well, actually, that's not true. One of his friends had reached out to me and said, listen, we're going to Abu Dhabi. All expenses paid.
And you're not working at this time?
Couldn't get a job to save my life. And I ended up living in my car for 5 months. I was absolutely broke, whatever.
So somebody's like, you want to go to Abu Dhabi, all expenses paid.
Listen, I was going crazy.
Yeah.
I was going absolutely nuts.
So tell us a little bit about Abu Dhabi.
Beautiful place. I remember when the first night we got there, the other guys were asleep. I was so excited. I got up in the morning, just started walking around. Just the architecture there is fantastic. I was treated great there.
So tell us about the first night that women were brought to the apartment. This is his apartment you guys are staying in, right?
Yeah, it was an apartment there. No, but he didn't stay in that apartment.
Right.
It was just an apartment for guests. And we were at a nightclub, and I can't even remember if it was our driver or someone else told us, you guys got to go back to the apartment. And we went back to the place. Our driver was there, and he told us, we were in the kitchen. He said, listen, some women are going to come. You just pick who you want, and they're going to stay with you till 12 noon the next day. And we were buzzing around like crazy because I had never heard anything like that in my entire life. And so the women came in. They went into the living room. They formed kind of like a crescent moon. They were in traditional Muslim garb, covered from head to toe. When they came in, and then they took off that garb. They were dressed in like they were going out to a nightclub. Mm-hmm. And you pick who you wanted, and that was it. I ended up choosing the girl who was in charge of that group. She was Romanian.
How was that getting paid for?
Seth would have paid them for it. Right. We were his guests. And
so eventually you came to realize that something a little more sinister was going on.
We were in Dubai. Driver had taken us up to Dubai. It was our first time going to Dubai. We had gone to a nightclub, fantastic time, blah, blah, blah. And then we ended up going back to a hotel room at the Fairmont. And there were some girls brought in. There was only 3 of us. So there were 3 girls brought in, but one was the madam. Mm-hmm. I came to Abu Dhabi before the rest of the guys, and they had already sent me a couple of girls. So I backed away and said, listen, you guys go ahead. I've been here for a while. They already sent me a few. One of the guys immediately gravitated to one girl. The other guy was sitting on the couch, and the girl really wasn't talking to him that much. He got kind of pissed off, and he gets up and comes to me and says, Roman, you go ahead, I know you want to. So I started talking to her. She was super nice and cool, and we went back into a room, and I remember she's like, you're nice. She's like, I'll stay with you for the night. Don't worry about it. And then in the morning we were talking, and she told me she was from Azerbaijan, and she told me that her passport had been taken and she had to pay a certain amount of money to, I can't even remember, maybe it was 18,000. I remember, I'm not totally sure, but off the top of my head I think it was that. And I'd never heard anything like that in my life. And I remember telling a buddy over there from the Emirates that story, and he kind of just blew it off as, nothing. And I didn't, again, to me, I'd never heard anything like that in my life.
Right, just so people know, like that's kind of a telltale sign of trafficking. It's what, women are somehow coaxed or they pay or whatever to get to Dubai or Abu Dhabi, promises of X, Y, or Z. And then when they get there, the passport is taken.
Okay, now again, at that point,
Right, so
I
you
probably never
know
even heard
anything,
of human
right.
trafficking. But
Right.
that's, you know, what she said, you know, when I came here, they promised me something, blah, 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 some job or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it was something like that. And I think the other story that I told you about, that was, so at that point I was staying in a hotel room. And I had met this girl before, some girls who had come to the hotel, again, paid for. But her and I formed the first night when she left her number and she said, listen, if you ever want to see me again, you can just call me, you don't have to pay. So we had hung out a couple of times after that. And then one day when she came over, I opened the door, she just ran into my room and she just buried herself in the corner and she was shivering. I was like, what's going on? And she told me she had seen a man in the elevator who had beat her friend. And her friend was in the hospital at that point. And she was just terrified.
And she'd also had her passport taken.
Yeah.
Right. So what did these women try to do to get out of their predicament?
I couldn't tell you. I never heard anything about that.
Now you stayed in touch with the Azerbaijani woman.
I did
for a while, right?
For a couple of years, yes.
Yeah. Do you know how her story ended?
I do
her
not.
Situation?
I do not.
Yeah. How often did you come across this situation?
Those are the only two times.
Those are the only two
times. Now, I remember another time, there was a young lady, she was Moroccan, that I liked. They brought her to me a couple of times. And she had told me that, I remember the driver she was supposed to stay the night. The driver had told me she had to leave early. And I had, didn't understand why, and then she told me, she's like, listen, when I leave here, you know, they take me back to an apartment with him and his friends.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. So how did your story end with this crew? How did you finally part ways?
I mean, I knew that I had to get out of that situation. I mean, listen, again, for a guy who's living out of a car, for some time, to me, it was the greatest thing in the world. Best hotels, great restaurants, girls, it was incredible. Great parties, disco, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I ended up, on one of our trips, we ended up going to London. I met a young lady over there. She happened to be a madam. I ended up dating her. I ended up moving to London.
Mm-hmm.
She had a little boy who I absolutely fell in love with. And it really just kind of was a shock treatment for me about what's important in life. Because before then, to me, I think I mentioned it to you, I used to dream about saving up my money so I could pay for $10,000 prostitutes,
right.
which is lunacy. So that situation really changed my perspective on things. The last time I was in Abu Dhabi, I was there for 4 months. And really, I was just thinking about, you know, at some point I got to get out of here. And so I had flown back here. We were staying at the Four Seasons, and I just flew down to Brazil. I was there for a month, and I think I may have sent maybe 1 or 2 emails during that time. But you know, when I came back, I ran into them at Sequoia,
Mm-hmm.
Seth and a couple of the guys. And you know, when they were leaving, Seth was like, "Look, let's go to the hotel. You know, it's time to go. We're going." I was actually kind of surprised that he invited me, because we hadn't talked in that month. But again, you know, we were very close. And I just said, no, I'm okay. I'm good. And I never heard from him again. But for him, that's a huge insult.
Right. You know, publicly, the UAE and other countries in the Gulf will say we're doing everything we can to crack down on this the sex work industry.
Mm-hmm.
Sex trafficking and human trafficking, sex work in general. Do you believe that, or was it your sense that everybody that mattered knew this was happening, and it was just kind of an okay thing?
I would assume that everyone knew it was happening, because when I was there were clubs there where there were nightclubs, but every girl in there was a prostitute, and it was basically you go in there and you just negotiate your price with her. everyone knew about these places.